grease in the air at the Route 7 diner was a familiar perfume. It smelled of coffee that had been on the burner too long, bacon sizzling on the flat top, and the faint, sweet scent of regret. For Scab, it was just Tuesday. He sat in his usual booth, the one with the cracked red vinyl, nursing a cup of black coffee. His knuckles were scarred, a roadmap of bad decisions and necessary evils, and they rested heavily on the worn Formica tabletop. He wasn't looking for trouble. At 48, he was mostly looking for a quiet place to let the rumble of his Harley fade from his bones. But trouble, he'd learned, rarely asked for an invitation. He saw them come in, a man in his late 50s, with a neatly pressed shirt that didn't match the coldness in his eyes, and a girl who couldn't have been more than 17. She walked a step behind him, her shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow. Her gaze was fixed on the scuffed toes of her sneakers. They slid into a booth across the room, the man taking the side that faced the door, boxing her in. Scab took a slow sip of his coffee. It was a small thing, the kind of detail most people would miss. The way the man's hand rested on the table, not relaxed but like a sentry. The way the girl flinched when the waitress set down their glasses of water, the clink of glass on table echoing like a gunshot in the quiet diner. He watched the man order for both of them without consulting her. A cheeseburger for him, a plain garden salad for her. The girl just nodded, her eyes a vast, empty canvas. Her hands were the tell. They trembled in her lap, a constant, frantic tremor she tried to hide by pressing her palms together. A trapped bird beating its wings against the cage of her own body. Scab had seen that kind of fear before. He'd seen it in the eyes of soldiers fresh from a firefight, in the posture of cornered animals. It was a raw, primal thing, and it didn't belong in a roadside diner on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. He tried to look away, to mind his own business. The world was full of sorrows he couldn't fix, but his gaze kept drifting back. The man was talking now, his voice a low, steady drone that never rose but carried an unmistakable edge of command. The girl didn't speak. She just picked at her salad, moving a piece of lettuce from one side of the plate to the other. She hadn't taken a single bite. Then for a fraction of a second, her eyes lifted from her plate and met his across the room. It wasn't a glance. It was a flare, a distress signal launched from a sinking ship. In that fleeting moment, he saw it all. The desperation, the helplessness, the silent, screaming plea for help. Then it was gone, her eyes dropping back to her plate as the man leaned in. His words a venomous whisper Scab couldn't hear, but could feel in the sudden chill that settled over his skin. He set his coffee cup down. The quiet Tuesday was over. Have you ever felt that? That cold certainty in your gut when you know something is fundamentally wrong, even when everyone else seems oblivious? It's an instinct older than words, a warning passed down through generations. If you've ever felt it, let us know in the comments below. Your story matters. The man stood up, his chair scraping against the linoleum. "Restroom," he said, not to the girl, but as a statement of fact. He placed his wallet on the table, a clear anchor, and walked away. He moved with an unearned confidence, the kind that comes from believing you hold all the power. The moment he was out of sight, the girl's entire posture changed. The trembling in her hands intensified, but now it was fueled by purpose. Her eyes darted to the man's retreating back, then to Scab. Her breath came in shallow, panicked gasps. This was it. The window. A sliver of time, maybe 60 seconds, where the cage door was unlocked. She reached for her phone, which had been lying face down on the seat beside her. Her fingers fumbled with the screen, her thumb swiping frantically. She looked at Scab again, her eyes wide with a terrifying mixture of hope and fear. She slid the phone across the table, a smooth, desperate push. It stopped just short of her uneaten salad. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her entire being was a single raw scream. Scab felt the world narrow to the space between their two booths. The clatter of dishes in the kitchen, the low murmur of the other patrons, it all faded into a distant hum. There was only the girl, her terrified eyes, and the small black rectangle on her table. He knew with absolute certainty that picking up that phone was a choice with no return. It was a key to a door he might not be able to close again. He could stand up, pay for his coffee, and walk out. He could get on his bike and ride until the diner was just a memory in his rearview mirror. No one would blame him. No one would even know. But he remembered that look in her eyes, the flare. He rose from his booth, his movements slow and deliberate. He walked over to her table, his boots heavy on the floor. He didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the phone. He reached down, his scarred hand covering the device, and slid it off the table and into his palm. He felt its cold, dead weight. He turned and walked back to his own booth, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped animal. He sat down, his back to the girl, shielding the phone from view. He took a breath and unlocked the screen. It wasn't password protected. She had left it open for him. It was a web page already loaded. The design was clean, deceptively professional. The header read, Eliza's Journey. Below it, a smiling picture of the girl. It looked like a school photo, one where she was trying her best to look happy, but the strain was visible around her eyes. Scab's blood ran cold. This wasn't a blog. It was an auction block. He scrolled down, his thumb moving millimeter by millimeter. There were more photos, dozens of them. Eliza on a swing set, Eliza holding a birthday cake, Eliza sleeping. Each image was innocent on its own, but together, under the clinical possessive captions, they became grotesque. Eliza, age 16, obedient and eager to please. Eliza enjoys quiet activities, very low maintenance. Private collection available upon request. Below the photos was a bio. It talked about her as if she were a classic car or a piece of property. It mentioned her troubled past and how her foster father, Mr. Albright, had rescued her. It detailed her schedule, her habits, her fears. It was a user manual for a human being. At the bottom of the page was a contact form and a discreetly placed link with the words, View secure gallery and bidding. Bile rose in Scab's throat. The air in the diner suddenly felt thick, unbreathable. He could hear the toilet flush in the men's room. Footsteps were approaching. He quickly memorized the URL, a string of characters that felt like poison on his mind, then closed the browser. He wiped the screen with his thumb, deleting the history, his movements swift and sure. He placed the phone face down on his own table, just as the man, Mr. Albright, rounded the corner. Albright stopped, his eyes flicking from Scab to the girl's empty table, then back to Scab. A flicker of something, annoyance, suspicion, crossed his face. The girl's voice, fragile as spun glass, cut through the